Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show.
Hey, great day. What a fabulous fall day we have. And I have a very, very, very special guest. I have my Congressman Keith Self. Amazing man. I actually bought a home to be in his district simply because we wanted to be up in Collin County. Also, you just met Cedric White a while ago. He is my co-host. He is my pastor. He is phenomenal at being able to do marriage counseling for veterans and active duty military. Keith, everybody right now has got the $64 question out there. When is this shutdown going to end? What is going to bring us to the table? What is going to make it work?
That is the question of the day, and believe you me, it's worth more than $64. We could say it's worth $1.5 trillion because that's what the Democrats are demanding. But frankly, this shutdown is exactly what the Democrats have voted for 13 times before. Now they voted against it 13 times. In March, this is what they voted for because this simply continues the funding from the Biden era on both policy and funding. So that's where we stand today. Why are they voting against this? Because President Trump is in office. Let's just be honest. So their demands are basically to repeal everything that the Congress has done this year under President Trump. The $1.5 trillion, that is what we saved under what used to be called the One Big Beautiful Bill, now called the Working Families Tax Cut. It includes the $9 billion in rescissions, the fraud, waste, and abuse that we cut out of the federal government. And then it includes the ACA, the Obamacare COVID-era temporary subsidies. So that's kind of the complete package that they're looking at, that they want to restore, that we have cut out both through DOGE and through Congress. So that is what you're looking at today. How are we going to move forward? I believe this thing is getting close to the end. I think probably Wednesday or Thursday of this week, we're going to see the Democrats come along. They will have won the elections on Tuesday. They'll come along, and I think we'll be ready to move into getting back to the appropriations process.
I think that would be huge. Your teletown hall the other day, you explained several things very, very eloquently. For instance, the SNAP program. You brought up some points about the SNAP program that I didn't know, like soda pop is the biggest item that is within the SNAP purchasing budget. These are things that don't help people.
Yeah, when you look at SNAP, what does SNAP stand for? Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So it's nutrition. We want our poorest families to have nutrition, to have meat, potatoes, vegetables on their plate. That's who it's meant for. But as Jim just said, the most purchased item under the SNAP program is carbonated beverages. Carbonated beverages have absolutely no nutrition, and that's what this plan is meant for, so that our poorest families would have meat, potatoes, and vegetables. And frankly, how did the SNAP program get started anyway? Well, it's part of the food bill, the farm bill, which actually is the food bill. So back when they wanted to do a farm bill, they needed urban votes, though, of course. So farmers, you think of being rural, they needed urban votes to pass it. So they set up food stamps. That's what it used to be referred to as food stamps, now referred to as SNAP. So they bought, or they got urban votes by having a SNAP program then known as food stamps.
Are there any requirements? If I have a SNAP card, are there any requirements put on me? I can't buy cigarettes, I can't buy alcohol, or is there anything like that?
There are some requirements on it. The problem with the SNAP program, why it is so large and so many people are on it, is because the U.S. defines poverty by a percentage of our population. It's not a level, because when you think about it, our poorest state, Mississippi, has a average income that is not dissimilar than Germany. Think about that.
Okay.
Not dissimilar than Germany. So we define it by a percentage of population, but all that shows you is just how blessed of a nation we really, truly are. But that's the case of SNAP. Yes, there are some very minor restrictions, but you've seen on social media, if you've been following it, that lobster qualifies under EBT program, which is the electronic card.
Right.
So there are more anomalies than there are restrictions.
Oh, all right. Let's change the subject just a second. Affordable Care Act. That wasn't affordable for me. It more than doubled my health insurance. It took my wife out. I mean, when she turned 65, we had to get into Medicare and lost tremendous coverage. And my company really couldn't afford to make up that difference. Right. So the Affordable Care Act was not affordable, but did it really help those that it was designed to help?
Absolutely not. The answer is very simple. It did not. And frankly, I think that is one of as bad as the shutdown has been for many people, to include our military, that's one of the good things that's come out of the shutdown is the sunshine that has been shown on this issue. Because the Affordable Care Act, if you remember right, it was going to lower cost. You were going to keep your doctor, all of the things they said about it. None are true. So now we have not only Obamacare, but then we have the subsidies, because the bottom line is it's not affordable. So now we have these COVID-era temporary subsidies on top of subsidies to kind of keep this program breathing, if I can use a health analogy. So it's kind of it is the sunshine has shown that the Affordable Care Act is not affordable. It needs to be reformed at its core.
That's the big thing that I haven't heard the Democrats talking about, is how can we build a reformation? How can we change this to where it's really taking care of people, Cedric? You and I know people, and I know people that are on Medicare or Medicaid. They're not affected by this, but other people are. So how do we go about doing that? And we got to have a consensus of opinion, correct?
Well, it is a gargantuan task to reform healthcare because there are so many players in it. The insurance companies will fight any sort of reform tooth and nail. But we need more transparency. We need the insurance companies out of the middle of this. We need a doctor-patient relationship back. We need to reform the pharmacy benefit manager program in its entirety. We need to make transparency and giving the patient back more rights, because the insurance companies sit at the middle of this right now and make a lot of the decisions, not the doctors. Then we need to get the doctors so that not all of them are employed by the healthcare system itself.
Right.
That's going to be a monumental, but it needs to be done.
It does.
Because this is unaffordable. You talked about $1.5 trillion in these unrelated policy demands, but Diane was telling me on the way over here, do you realize our national debt just compounds to about $1.5 trillion every year? Was that correct, Diane, what you said?
No, I think it was worse than that.
We use $2 trillion.
Okay.
We use $2 trillion a year.
Okay, so without spending any money to help anybody, we're throwing away $2 million a year. Trillion. That's a big number.
Well, we're printing it, and frankly, we're $38 trillion in debt today. So nobody can comprehend that. But one way of saying is it's 38,000 billion. 38,000 billion. And frankly, even with the progress that we've made trying to keep spending flat, we are looking over the next 10 years, perhaps going to $50 trillion,
Wow.
which would be 50,000 billion. It's incomprehensible.
Congressman, that's not sustainable, is it?
No, absolutely not. In fact, we're spending, if you say that all of government spending is about $7 trillion a year, we're spending over $1 trillion, 1/7 of it is on interest alone on the national debt. That's unsustainable, to use Jim's figure.
Okay, then let's talk about some of the things that have happened, the tariffs that have been instituted. A lot of people go, "Oh, you're messing with me. I'm going to pay more for this or more for that." We're paying for it anyway from the standpoint of jobs that went out of this country. We're paying for it for industry that left the nation. We're paying for it in other ways, in my opinion. Now, I've got a finance background, and I've been in real estate all my life. I understand this. A lot of people don't. How do we get this message across?
Well, we've got 7 million working age Americans that are not in the workforce. How do we get them back in the workforce? Now, this is a very complicated question. The H-1B visa program has come under it. It's another one that's gotten a lot of sunshine. And frankly, I talked to a lady in my neighborhood just yesterday who works at a major bank and says that it is true. We are replacing American workers with H-1B visa immigrants. So how do we, the tariffs, let's just talk about the tariffs for a second. The president's been very honest. The money that we're bringing in, that the countries are giving us because of the tariffs on their goods, is only the short-term goal. The long-term goal is to bring manufacturing back to the United States. That's the long-term goal. So we see all these companies that say they're going to be making these huge investments in the United States. That's what we need in the long run, because we need good paying jobs. We don't need to be solely a service economy.
Right.
We need to have some manufacturing, some engineering, some heavy metal manufacturing, so that we are being more self-sufficient. And everybody knows that our goal is to be more self-sufficient, because right now we are totally beholden to China for critical minerals. They process 92% of all critical minerals, and critical minerals go into our defense industry, to our high-tech industry, on and on. So the tariffs, how we do it is, you said you were in real estate, Jim. I will tell you, the housing market is the canary in the coal mine.
Oh, you're not telling me anything I haven't figured out. It's a frightening situation, because we have had inflation that was so rampant. And a lot of people shake their heads and they don't understand. Well, why do we have the inflation? Wait a minute. Because the Biden, and I'm going to be political, the Biden administration, prior to that, the Obama administration, because a friend of mine was in the oil and gas industry. He is an economist, and he went to a meeting, and a lady in the Obama administration in the secretary's office said, "Our goal is to have clean energy and get everybody, so we're going to raise gas prices to $5 and we're going to raise diesel to $7. Okay, everything in the United States, Cedric, you didn't get here in an electric car, I know.
No, I did not.
Everything, though, in the United States is touched by energy. Everything, from the suit you've got on, to the shoes you've got on, to the food you eat. So if you raise that up, electric cars, great, no emission. How much does it cost in emission to have these generating plants? How much does it cost in the technology to have the lithium? And what is that doing? So all of a sudden, you've got runaway inflation that's going because the core of the United States, energy, you just screwed with it overnight. You just took a 100-mile-an-hour freight train and did a 90-degree turn. That won't work.
It certainly won't. And don't forget the $9 trillion that we dumped into the economy during COVID. $9 trillion. That's why we had the short-term inflation. That was the short-term, because we had too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's the very definition of inflation. So that's the short term, but you're exactly right. Do you know we just literally set a record. They just announced it, I think, this morning. We are producing more oil and gas than we ever have. 5 million barrels a day. So energy costs, as you say, touch everything. It is really, energy is the foundation of civilization.
Right. If you don't have energy, you got a problem.
Yeah.
And this goes back. So getting a replacement for that. Solar power, not reliable. We put solar on our house, Congressman, and we found after about 10 years, it was shot.
Really?
You had to go back in, do a whole lot of cleanup. A lot of wires were messed up, and the effectiveness of the panels had reduced substantially. Those things are not permanent. Those panels, basically, over time, just like a battery.
Right.
Cedric, you know what I'm talking about.
I mean, from a battery perspective, from a solar perspective, yes, the technology, the ideology is great, right? For clean air, but the science has to follow it, and the economy has to follow it. So the numbers have to be there, and it all has to make sense. I think quite often we move too quickly with an idea. I could say quite often we move too politically with some ideas, but my thing is trying to make sense with what works for everybody involved, right? For this nation, for this country. Those are the things that we need to make happen.
And the lower income people get hit the hardest. They can't go buy a $100,000 Tesla.
No.
Look, I don't have any problem with green energy or Teslas or electric vehicles. Just don't subsidize them.
Yeah.
If you want to buy one, fine, have at it. That's your choice as a free American.
Right.
But the government shouldn't subsidize those energy choices.
We ought to make smart decisions. All right, we're going to take a break in just a second. This is Congressman Keith Self, 3rd District in Texas. Basically, you're Collin County going over to what, Hood County?
Hunt County.
Hunt County, okay. A great man, an Army veteran. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about his history. But he is an Army veteran, he is an Army Ranger, and he is my congressman, and he is an amazing man, and I get to serve him here in about a week. So we're going to be right back after all of these words from our partners, and those are fantastic people. Take a look at their messages. This is Veterans Impact Show, and Cedric, you're going to bring us back in just a second.
I'll do that.
All right. Thank you for being on board. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, welcome back to the second part of the Veterans Impact Show. I'm Cedric White, co-founder of Healing Thine Heart's Ministries and pastor of Heart Fellowship, here on the Veterans Impact Show, co-host with Big Jim Blythe. I follow Jim around because he makes me look good. So,
hey, you outweigh me.
But we're here today with Congressman Keith Self. Congressman, thank you for joining us here today. Congressman Keith is helping us to understand some of the things that are going on, a lot of the questions that are going on. We're in the middle of a government shutdown. We're in the middle of things being that are affecting just everyday Americans, and people are concerned. And we thank you for just taking time out of your busy schedule to come and join us. I guess the question I'd ask you is, what is the biggest question that you're receiving today, the calls that you're receiving? What's the biggest concern on people's mind today?
Actually, it's probably not the shutdown. It's the economy. Mm-hmm. Because if you remember back to our last election, Cedric, it was the border and the economy.
Right.
Well, the border now is generally secure, and the numbers are way down, historically down. So the economy, I think, is going to be the next issue in the next election. Certainly, we get calls about the shutdown.
Right.
And we get calls from the people that are most affected. Military veterans,
yes,
people that are flying because of the air traffic controllers not being paid, not being at work. But generally speaking, it is still the economy and how that's going to work out, because these are very uncertain times economically.
Yes.
In fact, it's almost the tale of two cities. Wall Street's doing well. The wealthy seem to be doing well.
Yes.
It's the people who live paycheck to paycheck that are calling, are reaching out and saying, how's this exactly going to work?
Right. No, it does. There seems to be a bigger delta a growing gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? And because we're all U.S. citizens, it's like, okay, how do we work together to try to make it a better, America for everybody? I'm a big supporter of taking care of our own. I believe that charity starts at home. Then we go abroad. I say it all the time, that we take care of home first, and I think that should be the focus for us. I'm not a big a political proponent of blaming this person and that person. I believe there needs to be some coming together, because regardless, it's going to affect every American.
One of the things I think I saw you, have been to so many things, but you were at Forge Now's opening, weren't you, with Rob Holmes?
I have been in the past. How
Okay.
long ago was that?
Oh, just 3 or 4 weeks ago.
No, I wasn't.
So he had a grand opening.
Right.
He was on our program when he first got started. He is also a West Point graduate. And what he does is so, in my opinion, amazing. They're teaching basic electrical skills, construction skills, plumbing skills, and giving certifications. So they walk out of the deal with a toolkit and certifications to be able to go out and start in a job. My opinion is we need to be putting money into helping schools like this train and give certifications where people can work, because we need to have an educated workforce, not only in the building trades, but some of the technology trades and things of that nature. And that's where also I think the military is great, because they're training in technology every day.
You're exactly right, Jim. And Collin College has a technical campus in Allen where they have automotive and carpentry and plumbing and welding. It is a fabulous facility because, look, even Elon Musk the other day said that he thinks college is overrated. We need more trades,
Right.
because you can graduate with a welding or an automotive and you make 6 figures right out the door.
Right, real quick.
So I think, to your point, Cedric, government sets the environment for the free market.
Right.
We want people to be successful in the free market because that's where jobs come from.
Yes.
So the government, I think it was Milton Friedman that said, if you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years there would be a shortage of sand. That was Milton Friedman, the great economist. And I tend to agree with him,
Okay.
because we need to let the free market work, and the trades are absolutely right. Why would you get an English degree where you're going to have huge student debt, first
Right.
of all, to pay back?
Right.
When you go to a trade school, you walk out of the trade school and you've got a job and
Right
no
away.
debt.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, this goes back to my generation. I'm a little bit older than you. I was born in 46. You were born in 53. And then you were born in a military hospital.
I was.
Your father was in the service. Here's the thing. Back then, everybody was like the man in the gray flannel suit. You got to be carrying a briefcase. You got to have a college education. You got to be upward mobile. You got to be in a professional situation. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of manufactured got moved overseas, because we didn't have the people as we had before. Just a personal opinion. And you're right. I think we need those. We need these things back in our school, even in our high schools. High schools don't have it anymore.
Right.
They need it. And these kids need to learn. Here's the other thing that I was talking, and you probably know Admiral Pat Walsh.
I do.
Okay, Pat and I are good friends, and he's been on several times. And Pat and I were talking about how their kind of work-study program works, because a kid has to do so many hours of not intern, but actual work in one of these sponsored companies. And that helps to pay for it. Okay, they're coming out with skills and used to working in an environment that works. You go get a degree, an English degree or foreign languages or this, that, whatever. It's not that easy to translate. It's not that easy to get a job, but they don't have work skills. That's, again, where I think the military gives a heads up. All right, we got to take another break. We're going to be right back in a minute. I got to tell you, this hour is moving like a Japanese flying freight train. I mean, it's unbelievable. So you stick around. We got a lot more to talk with Congressman Keith Self. You also will need to find out what it takes to be an Army Ranger and jump out of perfectly good airplanes. I ain't going to do it. All right, we'll be right back. This is Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
All right, we're back again with Congressman Keith Self. Thank you for joining us here again. Congressman, let me ask you in reference to what we're doing, what your interests are for supporting veterans, for keeping veterans engaged, for benefits and things like that. Do you have any initiatives that are hot on your desk right now?
We do. We've had several. I'll just mention a couple off the top of my head. First of all is the Appeals Process Transparency Act. And frankly, veterans who have an appeal, a claim or an appeal, really don't know where they are in the process. So I have put in a bill that says the appeals process has to every week put out basically where you are in the lineup.
Okay.
Because so a veteran knows that my appeal is being heard soon. It's not real exact, but it's close, and it's closer than what we have now. That's one. Secondly, there's a bill that I have put in that right now the VA is precluded from giving veterans information if they want to go to a faith-based organization. They're precluded from giving it. So my bill says if the veteran asks and agrees, the VA can provide personal data to faith-based organizations.
That walks right down my alley.
Absolutely, it does, Pastor.
That's outstanding because it was President George Bush. A lot of people don't realize this, that he had a substance abuse issue. And it was Dr. George Carlin who helped him via faith-based counseling to overcome that situation. A lot of people don't know that. And it was him who brought about the faith-based initiative, right, that allows people like myself to provide faith-based counseling and to actually get paid for it. Right. So it's a wonderful thing because we know it does work. That's not to say that cognitive behavioral theory doesn't work. That's not to say that the LPC does not provide a great service, but sometimes it takes a little bit more. And what you're doing, that particular act that you're bringing forth is going to be very, very beneficial to veterans. So thank you, Council.
You're absolutely welcome.
Thank you.
One of the big things that I hear all the time, and they say, okay, all of this money going to health care for illegals. And I've heard, I don't know how many Democrats say, oh, no. But I've actually heard, I guess, Speaker of the House Johnson, or others say, here, page, number, and a line item, money for illegal health care. I go back and I did some research, and I saw Hillary Clinton, I saw Schumer, I saw Nancy Pelosi, all making speeches 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago saying no health care for illegals. Now they're not only talking about health care, but they're talking about giving them rights to vote. That's not smart.
No, and it's not. And this is kind of like, at one time we heard that there were no illegals voting. Mm-hmm. Well, now we know there are. Now they said there are no illegals on Medicare, Medicaid. Now we know there are.
Right.
In fact, as you said, the Speaker has outlined there are 6 paragraphs in the Democrats' continuing resolution, not ours, not the ones that the Democrats are voting against, but in their own continuing resolution, there are 6 paragraphs that add up to about $192 billion. We're rounding it to 200. That absolutely, in the title, says this is health care for illegals. That's what they're asking for, $200 billion.
Why?
Because just like the illegal immigration, now health care for illegal immigrants, these are their future voters. These are their future voters, because once you get someone on the government dole, they become a ward of the state. When you look back to SNAP, when you look at SNAP, the percentages of ethnic groups that are here, some could be legal, most are probably illegal. It is amazing the percentage that are on SNAP benefits. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we want to stop as well. So the medical health care for illegals is real in the Democrat continuing resolution.
Well, you hit on a point. Let's go back to Lyndon Johnson. Most people don't know the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was actually the Civil Rights Act that Eisenhower put forth. And there were 2 people that shot it down. One of them was Speaker of the House. We happen to have a freeway up through Collin County named for him. And the other one was Lyndon Johnson. Then Lyndon Johnson, when he becomes president, he brings the same thing forward. But he has recorded, and I've heard this so many times, is saying, well, now they'll vote for us for the next 50 years, next 100 years. Yeah. They bought votes. But here's the thing that to me is scary. And I am not against immigration. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to bring somebody in who's automatically going to be in a poverty class, who automatically is a drain on society in so many ways. Because you know what? Where do your really serious gangs and criminals come from? They don't come from Highland Park. They don't come from McKinney. They come from the disadvantaged neighborhoods of Los Angeles, Chicago, Detroit, New York. And this is where this is building a base of people that are trapped and enslaved in a poverty scheme. That's not right. And part of what has happened in that deal was the aid to dependent children. Cedric, you and I have talked about this many times, about how the percentages of single-parent families have skyrocketed in the last 20 years. That's scary, Congressman. That's scary. I don't know how, if ever, we can turn that around. But to me, I'm not against immigration. I'm against bringing in people who are going to be trapped in the bottom.
That's right, and that's why we put work requirements on many of the financial benefits from the federal government in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. That's why we put work requirements on it, because if you're going to get federal benefits, if you're able, you should be working, contributing to society, because that's the point. We have, they just highlighted, I think this morning, a woman who has 7 children, she gets $3,000 a month because she has 7 children from 7 different men and single mother, of course.
Congressman, when you have that environment, you are in fact enslaving that family and those children in poverty. It doesn't matter what race, creed, religion they are, you're enslaving them because you don't have a man in the house. And one of the things I have said time and time again, for us as veterans, reach out, be a mentor to the fatherless, be a mentor to the grandfatherless, be a man who stands up and works with these kids and teaches them and mentors them. They don't have it in the home. We have created this. And that's, to me, that's not liberal. That's enslaving people. Or
if you remember Charlie Kirk, that was one of his main points. Be a man, be a father, take responsibility for the children that you sire. And we need men back in the households, every household.
Yes.
And this transcends wealth, income, race, everything. We cannot segment it. Now, we tend to talk about the disadvantaged, but every household needs a man in it, needs a father
Exactly.
figure. Both the young boys and the young girls need to have a strong
Yes.
father figure.
see-
You're a pastor, you
I was gonna
understand
say,
this in
we,
spades.
We see it from a pastor perspective,
Sure.
from a counselor perspective.
Sure.
We see the effect because we're starting to see and have to counsel younger and younger young men and women that are affected adversely because they don't have the correct level of parenting going on, the correct balance of parenting, a good, strong male figure, father figure in the house, not just a male figure, but and a good, strong mother figure, female figure in the home. It makes a difference. We, from the beginning of time, God designated Adam and Eve, right? A family. He placed that as the first ministry, and we've gotten away from it. And as Jim says, we're almost feeding. We're almost adding fuel to that fire by making it more beneficial for people not to work than to work, right? I'm a firm believer that people fall on hard times. It's not everybody that's getting government assistance that is a lazy bum or that kind of thing. However, quite often the system is taken advantage of, and we need to qualify and quantify what we're doing with the benefits that are going out there.
We need to make sure that poverty is a stage of life.
Exactly.
Not a permanent state of life.
Right. And not enable it.
Not enable
Right,
it, absolutely.
right.
That's what that would do, because some people, circumstances happen, life
Right,
happens,
right.
but it is a stage of life
Yes.
that you move through
Right.
rather than being a permanent state. That's what we do not want. Now, there will always be a substrata,
Well,
but that's not what we want as the norm.
Jesus said the poor will be among you always,
Right.
right? So there's going to be those who are destitute, those who are without. But that does not have to be the vast majority. And again, we don't have to feed into that, right? We have a saying, don't look down on a man unless you're helping him up. So now once we help you up, then hopefully you can stand on your own and move forward and be a benefit to society, right? Be a good citizen and provide and help to add to the economy.
I'll go a step further. I know that when I ran Cornerstone, when I ran Construction Development Company, the greatest joy I had was to hand every one of my employees a paycheck, was to go out on the construction projects and hand the checks out. Because I'd ask the owner of the company, can I pass out the checks? And I would have coolers of soft drinks and beer in the back of my SUV. And when you give a person a pat on the back and you say, thank you for what you're doing for me. Thank you for making sure this concrete is correct. Thank you for grading this thing. Thank you for putting that steel in place. And you give them a paycheck, that's a pat on the back. That's a self-esteem builder. And I always did that. And the other thing is, I worked for about 20-something years as a volunteer in a halfway house for teenage boys coming out of the Texas prison system. And where I'm going with this is we took the Bible out of the schools. We took the father out of the house, and now they're in the juvenile prison system, Texas juvenile justice system, and they're fatherless and they're lost and they don't have any direction. And that's part of where we're talking about. You can't just give them a handout. You got to take them a hand up, but you've also got to mentor them. You got to be there. My boys, now they're in their 40s, and I talk to them almost every day. And I'm always encouraging my boys. And I got to tell you, that's what we need to get back to. And whether it's faith-based, I have a couple of really good friends that are Muslim. We get along great. I don't have a problem with them. They don't have a problem with me. I have a lot of friends who are Hispanic. I speak a little bit of Spanish. My mother taught me. I have a lot of friends from Europe and a lot of Jewish friends. Matter of fact, I dated so many Jewish girls when I was going to high school. My grandfather thought I was going to convert. I knew Rabbi Olin down here at Temple Emmanuel. But we've got to work together.
Yeah.
And that's where I see the Trump leadership, God bless him, is trying to bring that about. And the other side, what I see is, my heart tells me they're doing everything to divide us, name calling.
Yeah. Chaos works to their benefit.
Absolutely.
Because we need a stable civilization, we need a stable workforce, we need a stable economy. And one of the things we need to do is to re-emphasize the self-esteem of work, the self-value that gives you when you work, when you accomplish something. Work is becoming a four-letter word. Oh, it is a four-letter word.
Yeah, well, a bad four-letter.
You get what I mean.
Right.
Well, for so many kids, the only thing they're ever going to think of is, hey, I'm going to be a barista, or I'm going to be a hamburger flipper. Oh, come on. And so those kids who have some self-esteem and some drive from any social class are going to skyrocket. They're going to be the ones to figure out. And one of the big things about what we do as a program is we talk to young people about, look at the opportunities in the military. Look at the opportunities you had. Look at the opportunities that a person today has to learn technology, to learn all of these things we're talking about, to learn leadership and be paid for it.
What's the most important thing they learn from the military, though? Responsibility.
Exactly.
Responsibility. Come out of the military, you know how to show up to work on time, you know what it is to put in a full day's work and be a part of something bigger than yourself.
And you don't have to have some chief petty officer or some gunny sergeant kicking your hinds.
Well, I mean, even the point of understanding that I don't get an attaboy for every little thing that I do.
Participation trophy.
Yeah, we know that there needs to be sometimes just getting the work done should be a payment enough, right? Yeah, I want my paycheck. Don't get it wrong. Yes, I want my paycheck. But the feeling of fulfillment when I've completed a job, I've done a job well, I've completed a job with integrity, that makes all the difference in the world. And I think we're losing a lot of that on our younger generation because they're not being taught. My father gave me a work ethic. I've worked since I was 12 years old. I've worked, right? But I'm proud of that. I taught my son that. I'm teaching my grandchildren the exact same thing, that listen, a good day's work for a good day's pay, right? And you can be proud of yourself when you put your head on your pillow at night.
You know what we're hearing, though? The younger generation, they're more conservative starting out at their age than any of the previous generations, my generation included.
Yeah.
More conservative at their age.
Wow.
Than any generation before them.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that's positive.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to ask you kind of a loaded question here.
Right after our break.
About the,
Right after our break.
Oh, yeah. Okay, please. Thank you. All right, we're going to take a break right now and I'm going to come back, ask a loaded question, but we're going to also tell you a little bit more about this congressman and what a great job he's doing. This is the Veterans Impact Show. Cedric White and I put it together so that you can get the most out of it. We're not here to give you a handout. We're here to help you get a hand up. We also want you to come to our breakfast on Veterans Day at the Hope Center. 8:30 in the morning, free breakfast, got great speakers. Take a look at it. Go to our website, veteransimpactshow.com. We're here for you. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Well, guys, this hour is flown by so fast. Keith, I hope you enjoy this.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to ask a loaded question. Started back in Vietnam. In the press, making up news. I know it. I saw it. I read a book with a guy written here in Dallas about stolen valor. I see our press dividing the country to such an extent that it's scary to me. Would you like to comment on that? Because I don't want us to live in a country that doesn't have a free press, but I don't want to live in a country where the press is trying to destroy us.
A couple of thoughts on that. Absolutely. Great question. First of all, the press has always been biased. It has always been that way. When you think modern politicians are trashed in the media, think about what Abraham Lincoln was called. Some very harsh terms. But during the Obama term, they allowed the press to propagandize. And we are working to try to overturn that. So there's that. But yes, and look, you know the old phrase, if it bleeds, it leads. So that's today it's clicks. It's not front page, it's clicks. So the press wants clicks and top of the fold news articles. Those are the scandalous. Those are the dramatic. Those are the stories that they want. And frankly, if they don't have one, they'll make it up.
Yeah.
And destroying people seems to be the sport of the press today.
My closest friend growing up was a guy named Michael Spears, who's no longer with us, and he was program director of KRLD. And Michael brought me back into radio, doing radio shows on KRLD. Mm-hmm. And one night we're watching the news, and I said, man, they're making this stuff up. They're trying to sell advertising, not trying to tell the news. And he got all huffy at me and got up, walked out of the room, went, and I heard the beer opener open 2 bottles, and he comes back and he goes, I hate to tell you, but you're right. More interested in making money. And I think one of the things that's going to correct this is if you take your money and you vote and you don't buy products from companies that are on these networks, that's going to have a huge effect. Now, one more question. You are a West Point graduate. You are a military legacy family. You and I have talked about leadership. We've talked about responsibility. But what would you say to a young man or a young woman, especially a young woman who comes to you and says, Congressman, what should I do with my life? I'm graduating from high school. Where should I start?
Well, the people that I talk to about this most often want to go immediately into politics because that's where I work. And I tell them, do not do that. Even if you've got a degree in political science, go get a real job. Learn that responsibility that we talked about from the military. Learn what it is to show up on time, to complete your tasks satisfactorily. Go get a job. And frankly, I think you have to understand your own bent in life, what interests you, and go do it. But do it with integrity, do it with a sense of mission for whatever you're doing. Because I can't tell people that everyone ought to go in the military. We're 3 veterans sitting here, but frankly, the military is not for everyone.
That's right.
So I'm not trying to tell people to go into the military, but go get a real job before you get into something like politics, because you just don't understand the dynamics unless you've held a job where you've had to perform and where there are consequences. Because one of the problems with politics is some politicians think there are no consequences to our actions. Well, we see the shutdown. People are suffering under the shutdown, but as a consequence of decisions by people who want pass the short-term continuing resolution so that we can move forward. Right. So go get a job. That's my first piece of advice.
I think that's great advice. I did not do well at SMU. Mm-hmm. And I got drafted, but thank God the Navy took me. And I got to spend 4 years in the Navy, and it was the greatest adventure of my life. And I told you the story about my DI, being a World War II hero and veteran. Mm-hmm. I met some of the greatest people in the world. I met John McCain. He was one of my pilots. Mm-hmm. My CO, Brian Compton, was the commanding officer that commissioned the Nimitz, and she is being retired right now. Mm-hmm. You're going to meet some amazing people. I tell them, if you are physically fit, mentally sound, and you want to, you can get the opportunity of a lifetime. Who runs the Army? Who runs the Navy? A really close friend of mine Admiral Woody Beale asked me that question, and I looked at him and I said, the Chief Petty Officers, Woody. That's right. The top sergeants, the gunny sergeants, the Chief Petty Officers, those are the E's 7 and above, run the Navy, run the Army. And you're going to learn leadership. So that's what I tell them. Plus, you can come out with today's Navy, today's Army, with a college education and no cost. Mm-hmm. And they'll actually put you through medical school. So I want to say a quick thank you very much, Congressman Keith Self, for being amazing congressman and being my district. Also, I want to say thank you to Fairway Independent Mortgage, my mortgage company. My MLS number is 311-548. We're an equal opportunity lender. I want to thank AUN in Northern California for taking us on their 11 stations, for DBTV taking us around the world. Thank you so very, very much for Healing Thine Heart's ministry. And I got to tell you, I love being part of our church and being part of that. And Symbiosis Integrative Health, they're doing everything they can to bring people around and give them the tools that they can mentally work or physically work. So thank you. Pastor, would you take us out?
Sure. If you would bow your head. Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for our Congressman, Keith Self. We thank you for the work and the sacrifice that he makes to assist in providing leadership to this country. We ask that you continue to have your hand on him to lead and direct him. Father, we ask that you keep this country, keep us safe from hate, hurt, harm, or danger, Lord God, and keep this country one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Congressman Self, you've got a great newsletter. You have your weekly or monthly breakfasts with Keith that I have thoroughly enjoyed several times. Just go to Keith Self, Congressman Keith Self, and you're going to find out a lot. I wish more congressmen around the nation were men like Keith Self that are veterans, men like Pete Sessions, men like many more that we have throughout the nation. And I got to tell you, I believe veterans will lead the way to bring us back together. So thank you again. Thank you. This is Veterans Impact Show. We'll see you next week.